Hey, we are two Star Wars nerds, and we're going to be talking about Qui-Gon Jinn today, specifically just in The Phantom Menace, but really why we love him as a character. So why don't you start some things off?
Qui-Gon is, I think, one of the best characters in Star Wars. He makes such a huge impact in such a little amount of time. And I think he's a really cool Jedi too. It's like kind of random, but just as I'm just thinking of Qui-Gon overall, is like he doesn't always do the Jedi way. He does what he thinks is right, and he's willing to go against the Jedi code or what the Jedi should normally do. And like you see that even in the Phantom Menace with Watto, how he cheats on the die to save Anakin, because that's what he should be doing. That's what Jedis are supposed to be doing, is saving people. So he kind of bends the rules a little bit to really do what's right. And so I think that's a really cool aspect of Qui-Gon as a character, and in comparison to other Jedis who are like by the book, this is what Jedis do, this is what Jedis do, he's willing to get creative and innovative to do not necessarily what Jedis do, but do what they were created to do, like the purpose they exist, which is to help and save people and bring peace and all that. I think he's also really, really cool example of like the father character that Anakin needed, and I think it was such an important part of Phantom Menace to give that taste like this. And then it makes you wonder, like, what if Qui-Gon didn't die? Where would Anakin be? Because it's setting up such a great storyline for Anakin too. But this video is about Qui-Gon. But I think Qui-Gon is the father figure that Anakin needed and didn't get to really have. And Obi-Wan kind of reluctantly took on that responsibility out of his honor for Qui-Gon. And you can see Qui-Gon not just with Obi-Wan, but with everyone. He's pretty well respected, even though he does things a little differently. He's never granted master.
He's never on the council.
Yeah, that's it. He is a Jedi Master, but not on the council because he's a little crazy.
He doesn't play the game. Yeah,
he's a little crazy. Like I said, he does what he thinks is best, and he's an amazing Jedi. He's a hero. He's a great with his sword, with his lightsaber sword. He's great. He's just very not witty. He's very smart, and I think he's I think Qui-Gon is what a Jedi should have. That's what Jedi should be. Like they shouldn't just be about rules. They should be about doing what's best to save people and bring peace, not check off boxes of what a Jedi does. Like different situations and circumstances call for different things, that where a checklist of what a Jedi does isn't going to work every time.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why people refer to him as a great Jedi, and they talk about that. And I think in particular what you can glean from the Phantom Menace, not necessarily any of the other books and comics and things like that, but just Phantom Menace, what you can glean is that he really is, you could say, following the Force. And because if you think about it, right, like, quick sidestep, in Attack of the Clones, you see Obi-Wan following kind of the facts and the trail of evidence.
Yeah.
And it plays out that way. But in Phantom Menace, you see Qui-Gon, he's kind of like all over, and it keeps centering really around Anakin. In some mysterious way. If it's like, okay, if it's Padme, if it's about it's like that's kind of how things are centered, where Obi-Wan more so just was like, boom, by the book, this is what I'm following.
Right.
And they definitely had their benefits and their drawbacks. And what I find just really fascinating, is he starts off on just this political mission, with the Trade Federation, and he has these great one-liners where he talks about the negotiations are going to be short. And then he gets basically driven down to Naboo, and then he runs into Jar Jar, and then
he's got great lines with Jar Jar.
Yeah, and he just is not about him. But then he ends up in Gungan City, and then he ends up Naboo, and then Tatooine, all this stuff, right? Like, he's just all around. And even then, this idea of like, just, I don't want to say the happenstance, but you could say like the will of the Force to connect with the Skywalkers and to find out about this, and just the way it all unfolds, ending in him taking Anakin on and even submitting him to the tests and all of this, and then eventually in his death at the end, at the hands of Darth Maul. But it's just really interesting for me. Why I in particular love him as a character so much is seeing that, I guess, openness and willingness to go, wherever the Force leads. And it's kind of like he doesn't answer to anybody. Yeah. But he's like, I'm gonna do what I think is best until there's something else that I'm like, nah, I think this is the better option. And it's really unique to see that.
He's willing to fight too for what he thinks the Force is doing, like even with Anakin, like to come into the council who won't accept you as a council member and say, this is what we need to do, and not backing down, and then actually seeing that come to pass. Like, he's the real deal.
And in that, it breaks all the rules. He's too old. He's already formed attachments, and he's like making a case for Anakin. And, you could go, I think Qui-Gon Jinn in particular, who gets the most screen time, by the way, in The Phantom Menace, he is, I think, such a pivotal role in Anakin's life.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's so much that had to go right in The Phantom Menace, and the reason, side note, reason we love The Phantom Menace is that we think it does go right, is it doesn't feel forced. It just feels like natural. Like, yeah, we see this, but there's also, it almost feels like this divine push, so to speak, the Force kind of like, man, things are progressing like just the way they should, for this to happen, for episodes 4, 5, and 6 to become a reality. Yep. But yeah, for Qui-Gon, like you said, he's willing to do and say things that nobody else really would. Yeah. And you talked about the what ifs, like, well, what if he survived? Like, what if he killed Darth Maul, and what if he survived? What would have happened with Anakin? I think it's a great question. I think another one would be like, what if he never went to Tatooine? Yeah,
I was thinking that too.
Or like, well, what would have happened if he would have saw Obi-Wan die, instead of flipped, and I think, obviously, like a plane taking off, you change a trajectory a little bit at the beginning, its destination is different. And I think, for me in particular, that's why The Phantom Menace is so interesting. It's like, well, there's so many possibilities for what could have happened.
Yes.
I think the only final thing I can think of is, like, what do you think of his fighting style? He used, a very controversial form of fighting. It was very acrobatic, but it ended up being his downfall. Do you have any additional thoughts on that?
I think his fighting style is like perfect for who he was as a Jedi, and I think all the fighting styles have a downfall.
For sure.
So it just depends on who you're fighting. Like with Maul, that was not maybe the best.
Yeah.
But yeah, they all have their downsides. That's a whole other video. But I think it fits exactly who he is as a person and as a Jedi, and it makes me sad that, especially how he ended. It's so hard to watch for me, but I don't think they should have changed it, because I think it is a good style for him. Like, yeah, I think it was almost like made for him.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, with that, let us know in the comments below what you think of Qui-Gon Jinn. I've yet to meet anyone who doesn't like him.
How can you not like Qui-Gon?
I don't know. That's a great question. But let us know maybe what your favorite Qui-Gon moment is in The Phantom Menace, or maybe if you're like, man, I love this piece outside of the film, you know, about Qui-Gon's life. You know, that's totally cool too. And eventually, you know, with these, we'll start digging into further material. We wanted to stick to the films just for these. But with that, we are two Star Wars nerds, and may the Force be with you always.